The first method is Hand ID, and it may be the most unusual idea in this entire video. LG introduced it with the G8 ThinQ in 2019. Instead of asking you to touch a fingerprint reader, the phone asked you to hold an open palm in front of its screen. To make that possible, the LG G8 ThinQ used a front-facing time-of-flight camera and infrared sensing. The system did not simply photograph the lines on your palm. It tried to recognize characteristics of the veins beneath your skin. LG presented it as one of 3 biometric options on the phone, alongside fingerprint recognition and 3-dimensional face unlocking. At first, this sounded like a strong idea. You leave fingerprints on glasses, tables, and the phone itself, but you do not leave the vein pattern inside your hand on anything you touch. That makes palm veins much harder to copy from an object. However, in real-world use, Hand ID could be awkward. You had to place your hand at the correct distance and keep it inside the scanning area. The phone then asked you to move your palm toward the screen. When it worked, it looked futuristic. When it failed, touching the fingerprint sensor was usually faster. Because of that extra effort, Hand ID never became a normal part of smartphone security. Still, the G8 ThinQ remains one of the few commercial phones that genuinely tried to identify its owner by looking beneath the skin of the hand. From the veins in your palm, the next method moves to an even smaller biological pattern. The iris scanner tried to turn the colored part of your eye into a secure key. Before Samsung made the technology widely known, Fujitsu released the Aeros NX in Japan in 2015 with a system called Iris Passport. Samsung later brought iris recognition to a larger audience through phones such as the Galaxy Note 7, Galaxy S8, Galaxy Note 8, Galaxy S9, and Galaxy Note 9. Unlike basic face recognition, an iris scanner did not rely on the overall appearance of your face. It studied the detailed pattern in the colored ring surrounding the pupil. Those patterns are highly complex, and even the 2 eyes of the same person are different. To capture those details, Samsung phones use dedicated iris hardware with infrared illumination. Infrared imaging helped the phone see the iris pattern in lighting conditions where an ordinary front camera might struggle. To unlock the device, you woke the screen, held the phone in front of your face, and aligned your eyes with the guides on the display. When everything was positioned correctly, the scan could be quick and impressive. It also worked in low light, which gave it an advantage over many simple camera-based face unlock systems from the same period. However, the experience was not always effortless. Glasses, reflections, bright outdoor light, camera angle, and distance could affect recognition. You often had to look directly at the correct part of the screen instead of simply picking up the phone and continuing with your day. As smartphone displays expanded and bezels became smaller, manufacturers had less room for dedicated scanners and infrared components. Samsung eventually removed the iris scanner from later Galaxy flagships and focused on fingerprints and face recognition instead. That brings us from a system filled with special sensors to one that needed no unusual hardware at all. LG Knock Code turned a few taps on a dark display into a secret password. LG introduced Knock Code in 2014 and used it on phones such as the G Pro 2, G2 Mini, G3, and several models in its F and L series. The company also brought the feature to certain older phones through software updates. The idea was easy to understand. The screen was divided into invisible areas, and you created a private sequence by tapping those areas in a specific order. Because the sections were invisible, no numbers or dots appeared to reveal what you were entering. More importantly, you could enter the sequence while the screen was still off. A correct knock code woke the phone and opened the home screen in one action. That made it feel faster than pressing the power button and then entering a separate password. LG allowed users to create codes containing several taps, and the company said the system could produce more than 80,000 possible combinations. The tapping area could also adapt to different parts of the display, which made one-handed use easier. Even so, knock code was not impossible to observe. Someone close enough could watch the direction and rhythm of your taps. Marks on the glass could also reveal the areas you touched most often, so the phone still required a backup pin. As fingerprint readers became faster and cheaper, tapping the screen several times began to feel unnecessary. Knock code slowly disappeared, but it remains a good example of a security feature built around the way people already use their phones. While knock code asked your fingers to remember a rhythm, the next method asked your voice to prove who you were. That feature was known as Trusted Voice. Trusted Voice appeared as part of Google's Smart Lock on older Android devices. After setting up Voice Match, a user could say the familiar Google activation phrase phrase and allow the phone to compare the voice with a stored model. On supported software versions, a successful match could give the user access without requiring the normal screen lock first. The idea seemed perfect when your hands were occupied. You could speak to the phone from a short distance without touching the display, and it fitted naturally with the growing popularity of voice assistants. The weakness was that a voice is constantly exposed. Other people can hear it, microphones can record it, and software can reproduce it. Even at the time, Google warned that a similar voice or a recording might be able to unlock the device. Real voices also change. A cold background noise, a different speaking volume, or an unusual microphone position could make recognition less reliable. A system that was too strict became annoying, while a system that was too relaxed became less secure. Google eventually removed voice-based phone unlocking and limited what the assistant could do from the lock screen. Today, assistant responses can still be allowed on a locked Android device, but opening other applications may require the user to unlock the phone. So trusted voice did not disappear because voice control was useless. It disappeared because recognizing a voice is not the same as proving identity strongly enough to protect everything stored on a smartphone. From spoken words, we now move to handwriting. Samsung once allowed Galaxy Note owners to unlock a phone by writing their personal signature. Signature unlock was available on the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 and used the S Pen. During setup, the phone asked the owner to write the same signature several times. Those samples gave the device a reference for what the finished signature should look like. Once the feature was active, the user could remove the S Pen and write the registered signature on the lock screen. If the result matched closely enough, the phone unlocked. Samsung also included an option to hide the visible ink while the signature was being written. At first, this felt like a perfect match for the Galaxy Note. The S Pen was already designed for writing, and a signature felt more personal than a row of numbers. The problem is that signatures were never created to be secret. We place them on receipts, forms, contracts, and delivery screens. Other people may already know what your signature looks like, and many signatures are simple enough to imitate. At the same time, a complicated signature could become inconvenient for the owner. Writing it accurately every time was slower than entering a PIN, especially while walking or holding the phone with one hand. You also needed the S Pen, which added another step. For those reasons, Samsung treated signature unlock as a lower security option and required a backup method. The feature did not become a standard part of later Galaxy phones, but it remains a clear example of a phone turning handwriting into a digital key. After a blank screen used for handwriting, the next phone covered its lock screen with an entire photograph. BlackBerry called the feature Picture Password. Picture Password arrived on BlackBerry 10 devices with the BlackBerry 10.2.1 software update. It could be used on models such as the BlackBerry Z10, Q10, Q5, Z30, Passport, and Classic. To set it up, the user chose a picture, selected a number, and then selected a secret point somewhere inside the image. That point could be a person's eye, the corner of a building, or any other detail that was easy to remember. When the phone was locked, a field of numbers appeared over the chosen picture. The user had to move the selected number onto the correct location. For example, the secret could be placing the number 7 over the wheel of a car. What made the system interesting was that the numbers appeared in different positions each time. A person watching your finger would not automatically know which number you were moving. The observer needed to identify both the correct number and the exact destination. That did not make Picture Password perfect. A clear recording of the screen could reveal the answer, and choosing an obvious location made the method easier to guess. BlackBerry also kept the normal device password as a backup. Still, Picture Password was one of the most creative lock screens ever shipped on a phone. It replaced an abstract code with a visual memory task and made unlocking feel like solving a tiny personal puzzle. BlackBerry kept that puzzle completely inside the display. Motorola went in the opposite direction and gave users a physical object that could unlock the phone. Motorola Skip was introduced for the first generation Moto X in 2013. The original Skip was a small fabric clip containing an NFC tag. A user could attach it to clothing, a bag strap, or another convenient place. After the accessory had been paired with the Moto X, touching the back of the phone to the Skip unlocked the device. Motorola also offered small adhesive skip dots that could be placed in locations where the user regularly needed quick access. The method worked through near-field communication, so the phone and the tag had to be extremely close. There was no need to open an application or type a code. code. A short tap against the registered accessory acted like presenting a physical key. That convenience also created the main weakness. Motorola Skip did not recognize the owner, it recognized the tag. Anyone holding both the phone and its paired skip could potentially use the same unlocking process. Where you kept the accessory therefore mattered. Attaching it to something stored beside the phone reduced the protection. Losing the tag created another problem, while carrying it separately made the system less convenient. Even with those compromises, Motorola Skip predicted an idea that survived. Modern phones can remain unlocked near trusted Bluetooth devices and smartwatches. The original Skip simply used a smaller NFC-based object. For the final method, we returned to the eyes. But this time the phone was not looking at the iris at all. It was examining blood vessels visible around the white part of the eye. ZTE announced Eyeprint ID for the Grand S3 in 2015. The technology came from iVerify and was promoted as a password-free way to unlock the phone. Unlike Samsung's dedicated iris scanner, Eyeprint ID was designed to work with a normal front-facing camera. The system captured the unique patterns of blood vessels in and around the white areas of the eyes and compared them with the information registered by the owner. To use it, the owner held the phone in front of the face and followed guidance on the screen while the camera recorded the eye area. The process could take longer than a fingerprint scan and depended on lighting, camera position, and how steadily the device was held. The approach was attractive because it could add eye-based authentication without the same dedicated infrared hardware used by later iris scanners. In theory, manufacturers could bring it to more phones without redesigning the top of the device. In reality, Eyeprint ID never became a common smartphone standard. Fingerprint sensors were already becoming faster and more affordable, while advanced facial recognition eventually offered a smoother experience. That difference is important because Eyeprint ID and iris scanning are easy to confuse. An iris scanner analyzes the colored part of the eye. Eyeprint ID focused on visible blood vessel patterns around the white areas. They both used the eye, but they were not the same system. Now that we have seen all 8 methods, one pattern becomes clear. Smartphone companies were not afraid to experiment with how a phone could recognize its owner. So here's the question for you. Which of these 8 methods would you genuinely use on your phone today, and which one would you trust the least? Write your answer in the comments and explain your choice.